The utility worker assault bill. It's now on Governor Cuomo's desk, and union leaders are hoping he'll sign it soon. As we discussed back in spring, the measure would increase the penalties for attacking a utility worker. Joining me now from New York City tonight to explain more is Pat Cadiz. He's from IBEW, Local 1049. Pat, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
So first of all, have you received any word as to whether the governor is expected to sign this bill or not?
Well, we've been discussing it with some of his people, his aides, and we have a good feeling on it, but we want to make sure that the governor and his staff do understand that this is an important bill. And Assemblyman Francisco Moya, who's been a bulldog in pushing this bill forward through the legislature, has really made it clear that our members that are out there working across the state really need the protections that this bill affords.
So, Pat, if you could just give us a sense for what sort of concern are utility workers facing right now on the job, and how could something like this potentially increase safety for these workers?
Well, currently, there's similar legislation like this, both in New York State and in other states, that protect, first responders. They protect other people out there that are in the public eye. And we don't have that for utility workers. Our members are going to consumers' homes. They're reading meters. They're discussing, collections of back payment for, past due accounts. They're there to repair and restore power when power is out. And all too often, in many communities, and this is communities across the state from Buffalo to Long Island, are being assaulted. And we want to raise the public's awareness that it's important to understand that these people are out here to do a job. They don't deserve to worry about being assaulted at work. Certainly assault is not part of their job description.
You know, sometimes after these bills passes, there are changes that are sought or technical changes that are made. Have you heard anything about any sort of tinkering with the bill now that it's kind of working through the pipeline, as it were, following passage?
No, I haven't heard anything yet. This bill mirrors other legislation similar to this, both for police officers and other first responders. We don't see anywhere where we would need to do any tinkering with it. It does elevate the penalty to a Class D felony, and that carries a prison sentence with that. But what we want to be able to do is see this whole bill pass in its entirety and intact in the way it was passed through both the Senate and the Assembly.
In terms of just getting a bill like this done, what did it take in terms of talking to individual lawmakers? I mean, obviously you had an advocate there in Assemblyman Moya, but was there an education campaign that you had to undertake to explain to legislators that, first responders have these issues, but so do utility workers?
There was. The lawmakers in the state were very methodical in studying the bill and looking it over to make sure that this was something that would be an appropriate law for the people of the state of New York. We spoke with legislators, and we also had some of our own members that were assaulted at work speak with the legislators and tell them their stories, tell them how they would just simply, they'd be working in a yard and someone would come around and start pushing them away or sick their dogs on them, or do anything they could to stop them from doing their jobs. And once the lawmakers had an opportunity to really sit back and understand what this law means and how it does offer protections and show the utility workers across the state that they have their back, they came on board.
And has there been any sort of increase in terms of attacks on these workers? And, obviously adding a felony could be a deterrent, but is there any evidence that, that you've received from law enforcement officials that increasing this penalty could add some sort of deterrence to workers being attacked while on the job?
I can share a story with you of a collector that was assaulted on eastern Long Island. And subsequent to that that attack, which occurred when three young men had surrounded the collector and prevented him from cutting off the service. In talking to that police officer after that incident, he had told me we need something stronger to be able than simple harassment or simple criminal mischief type penalties, and that's what got us to start saying we need to amend the penal law in New York.
Would it have helped to potentially have, say, two workers go out on these calls in order to, provide for, I guess, a form of backup, if you will? Would that have been a potential fix as well?
And frequently we do. We see that in urban areas, particularly Con Edison property, since there are people out in twos. In some other urban areas across the state, utilities do send people out in pairs for safety's sake. But every time we have to do that, additional personnel, that means they're not covering other work, and if they're not covering other work, there's a greater expense there. And it's not that we're putting a price on safety or saying that one person should be the one going out. This is also to raise the awareness of the public. Don't do it. These people are treated differently, just like a crossing guard. Crossing guards have the same protection. We don't send our crossing guards in pairs of twos in order to protect them either.
And just, we're almost out of time, but I'm just wondering, in terms of getting a bill like this through again, have you, received support from, say, folks in management who would potentially like to see their workers protected as well?
Absolutely. The utilities have partnered with us on this bill. Both from PSE&G, which is the employer that my members work at, to Con Edison, to National Grid, and other utilities across the state have all come together and said, we'll side with you in the IBEW, and also the Utility Workers of America, Local 1, 2 in New York City, to get this law passed. And they have been instrumental in helping us get this law through.
And again, the timeline that you're looking at here in terms of potential approval from the governor ultimately?
We're hoping in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
It's on the governor's desk now.
Okay. Pat Gadice, thanks very much for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Nick. Thanks for having me.